Good evening, everyone. How are you all doing? Just want to say a very good evening. Hope you're doing well. Just want to check that everybody can hear me okay. Hey, can somebody in chat just let me know if it's coming across? You can hear me fine? Okay, great. So I'm getting in the chat that you're hearing me okay. Amazing. We've got people from California, from Australia. Everybody can hear me okay. That's the most important thing. I'm just going to put a couple of links just to get a few more people in. Hey, Monica, thank you so much. I hope I'm getting this correct. Radmila. Hey, Robin, thank you so much. Coming through fine. That's good to hear. Okay, so this evening, it's going to be quite a heavy, full-on conversation. Basically, this channel is 100% totally pro Shanann Watts and her children. So obviously there will be some bias on my part, and this is where my sympathies lie for the victims. So I'm looking through that prism the whole time. I'm always looking at this whole case through the prism of the victims. And unfortunately, as I've said many, many times, I'm not a supporter of the Watts family, and obviously definitely in no way supportive of the monster as he is known. So tonight, just going to try to debunk some of the myths, and there've been so many surrounding this case, a lot of hate towards a pregnant mother who was actually murdered. So I just want to sort of take a bit of a dive into that and question why there is so much hate for a victim. And I'd love you guys to join in the chat. If you haven't already, I'd love you guys to subscribe. My aim with this channel is to try to build the subs, so then we could start to get a few more guests interested in coming on. I haven't sort of invited any people yet because I feel we just need to be a bit more established. It's only been a month, but we have had over 4,000 views on the more popular subjects. So, you know, things are really going well for the channel, but anybody who you think could enjoy what we're going to be talking about, please just direct them this way. I would be so grateful to you guys. And I'm going to try to keep this as a weekly conversation. And again, if you have any suggestions, what you would like me to cover, anything like this, then please just drop it in the chat and I'll review it later on this evening. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shannon Smith. So yeah, I'm going to be totally transparent with you guys. When I'm talking opinion, I'll try to make that extremely clear. And when I'm referring to some of a social media post, I will reference it. I'll sort of explain step by step. And when I'm going to be referring to the discovery, which is what we can go on, really the only thing we can really go on, having no actual court case, then I would also point that out. So it will be some opinion based, but I never try to state anything as fact unless I can back it up with something tangible. So I will try to make that very clear. So where I'd love to start this evening, and I really would love you guys to hop in with your opinions. Why do you think this victim has been so persecuted, attacked, vilified? I mean, whole hate groups were set up immediately after the murder. Everybody seems to have an opinion, and a lot of it is very anti the victims. And I was just astounded by this. And this is the reason that I've launched this channel. Even though it's coming up to 3 years, the hate seems to be intensifying. I've just heard this evening, this is a total rumor, okay? Please, I will not report it any more than a total rumor, but the 35C could be back on the cards. It's just an initial rumor I've just heard about 10 minutes ago. I haven't got any verification. Next time I speak to you, I will have checked this out. But, you know, this continual misery merry-go-rounds of this Watts case, it isn't dying down. Post Netflix, I mean, more and more people have come into this case, and every day I see the same accusations posted as if it's actual fact. So that's what I'm hoping tonight to discuss with you guys. One thing I've been really looking into to try to make sense of with this case, we see through these social media posts this perfect family next door, the perfect husband, the wife raved about him, the mother said he was the perfect son, the children, he was such a good father, that he was their hero, you know. So I think people were thinking, what was going on here? What went wrong? You know, my husband isn't as great as that. My husband isn't amazing with the children every day and does everything for me. Oh my goodness, could this happen to me? And then I think people started to look into it. Obviously, Shanann had no clue that her social media posts would be so dissected. She never realized that the Watts family would go on their propaganda campaign. She had no clue about any of this. And I think some people, subconsciously, they had to find a reason to somehow justify what happened, because they couldn't comprehend, there's no way this could happen to me. So if they could find something, oh my gosh, yes, I didn't agree with her parenting skills, or she was very bossy, or whatever, you know, these accusations. But I wonder if that's the deep cause of this hate, because I've never really seen it with any other victim in such a high profile case, that she would be so bashed every single day. Let me just catch up with you guys. Yeah, I'm hearing that Miller. Yeah, I can't say my source is reliable, but Robin, some people are infatuated with Chris Watts. Absolutely, yeah. And then there's a lot of stirring up. Yeah, I mean, with the whole thriving, I mean, to me, Shanann believed in the products is no different to some influencer on, you know, Instagram flogging their teeth whitening when you know they've got veneers, so their teeth are not white through their products they're trying to flog you, or you know, the diet teas that all these gym going influencers try to sell. I can't understand why people are so judgmental about her. I mean, Shanann was trying to support her family, and I'm actually going to do a whole episode just on Shanann, and obviously it will be very pro, but I am going to look realistically at Shanann, but in a very sympathetic way, obviously, but just to give a bit of a insight of what I think was going on. So that's going to come. So guys, let's start off with this sort of debunking, if you will. So unfortunately, nearly every single one of these episodes starts with a central character, the mother-in-law, Cindy Watts. And in the early days, there was definitely a Watts propaganda machine that was putting out information to all the creators on YouTube and Facebook. At that time, there was definitely sympathy for Chris Watts, and it was very easy to speak to these kind of creators. It was kind of speaking to the converted, they were already on their side in a way. And we all have seen in my previous episodes when we've discussed Cindy Watts' TV interviews and how she could barely keep her face turning into a snarl every time she mentioned her daughter-in-law. So there was this movement coming from the actual family and their spokespeople, and then their flying monkeys, as they call them, and then the creators who had then in turn influenced their followers. And we had people like Miss Mensa, who is of a belief that Chris Watts was a battered husband. So she actually interviewed Cindy Watts, which is quite unbelievable, really, when you think about it. That Cindy Watts, the mother-in-law of the victim, would collaborate with such a creator, somebody who was so anti-Shanann. And what's happened over the last 2.5 years is a lot of the creators have now been dropped by the Watts machine, and they're now seeing things with a slightly different perception. So just for instance, just with this one creator by the name of Miss Mensa, so she started out very supportive of the Watts family, and then just her very latest upload, the title is Chris Watts, was SW being gaslighted by her in-laws? It's had 6,000 views, and it was that was her latest stream. So you can see how the tide is changing. Even some of the larger creators, such as Critical K, they've also been, they feel, used and abused by the Watts propaganda machine, and they're turning as well, and they're saying, okay, we were fed information, and we then put it out there to our audience. So there is definitely a bit of a change going on. The thing that everybody talks about, if only this had gone to court, if only we could have had a case, because my goodness, Chris may have got off. We've got all of this evidence that we could present, all of these accusations that we can level at the victim. And people were getting really excited like 2 or 3 weeks ago when everybody was talking about a 35C. But what they failed to realize is all a very brilliant legal team for Shanann's side, all they would need to establish is reasonable doubt. And I've looked into a few of these accusations and more than found much, much more than reasonable doubt. So these wouldn't hold up. They wouldn't stack up because they're not based on actual reality. They're not based on fact. So I'm going to try to delve through some of the larger sort of accusations and some of the more trivial ones that really hardly should be mentioned, but they keep getting repeated. So I think it's important just to sort of chat over them and get your sort of guys' opinion. Let me just catch up on the chat here. Yeah, that is definitely what happened. The gaslighting from day one. They never accepted her. She was never made to feel welcome. I mean, I've stated it in my previous episodes. I really do believe that Nutgate was staged to totally destabilize her. They needed to be helping her. She was pregnant with 2 young children. She was trying to run some little gigs while she was away in North Carolina on the final holiday. She was trying to organize some little 5 gigs to get some sales coming through, and they were just playing with her. So yeah, I really haven't got any sympathy for what they did to her. So basically, okay, let's start at this huge thing that everybody knows as Nutgate. Okay, so there was this horrific bust up between Shanann and her mother-in-law, and a lot of people have actually believed and think that Shanann made it all up, that there were no allergies. But, you know, all we have to do is look at the actual evidence. And there was a photo on Shanann's social media with CC after she'd gone for allergy tests, and you can see the hives on her back when they discovered that she was allergic to certain things. So, you know, are people thinking it was photoshopped, or she went into a hospital and they faked some test results? I mean, why would they do that for a tiny young child? You know, the hospitals are there to get children better. They wouldn't be fabricating. So that was just one thing. We have another when Shanann was at the North Campus Hospital, and this is when Celeste had a severe allergy to cashews, and she'd been vomiting and, you know, was seriously unwell. Chris was with her, so, you know, he was there to witness this. She was prescribed, this is when she was given the EpiPen and some drugs to sort of, you know, bring down the symptoms of this, but that was due to cashews. So, okay, so we're thinking, well, here she is in a hospital setting. Chris was with her. So how can people sort of ignore what was going on? I mean, it was such a huge thing, wasn't it? It caused this huge rift. Shanann was absolutely so upset about the whole thing. She did blast it on Facebook because she was so frustrated. She thought it wasn't, obviously, it was all of these years since the engagement. This had been building up. But yeah, she did blast it out on Facebook to her friends, and she just couldn't understand because, you know, she stated, her son and I gave her, meaning Cindy, articles and info from the doctor. This isn't new. She's had these allergies for 2 years. So I think it's really important to think about, okay, well, what does Chris Watts say? Because, okay, we can't always believe him, but over certain aspects, these were his daughters, and he does sometimes give a version of the truth. So I thought we would look at his confession in Dodge when Tammy Lee and the other investigators went in to speak to him. So he said that he felt that everything could have been different if he'd have intervened differently in the whole Nutgate situation. So he was saying, you know, his mother was really kind of playing the whole thing down. And he confirms, I've seen CC the first time. Well, I've seen a picture when she had a cashew the first time. It wasn't good. And then she had a kiwi the second time, and the same thing happened. So I know it's real. It wasn't like her throat closed up, but she broke out in a full body rash. It looked really crazy looking, and luckily nothing with her throat happened. So then Tammy, the agent, said, did that make you angry at your mum for doing that? Yeah, I mean, I'm just like mum. You've got to get it, you know? You need to think, you need to pay attention. Just because another kid can have something, it doesn't mean the other one can. So, you know, there's obviously this huge tension in the family, but Chris himself confirmed that, you know, CC did have these allergies, and obviously Shanann was exceptionally protective of her daughters. So, you know, there was always going to be a kickoff there for sure. So yeah, that caused obviously one of the biggest rifts, and really was integral to this whole dreadful tragedy that went down. Okay, then if we start to look at some of the more trivial, as in you really can't believe that people are saying these things. what I've noticed with a lot of these guys with their accusations, they always qualify their comment. They always start it with, oh, well, of course she didn't mean, sorry, of course she didn't deserve to be murdered, but, and then they always go into their spiel with their accusation or whatever. So let's look at one of them. It's just really so unbelievable. The whole idea that Shanann would punish Bella by giving her haircuts, that she would wish for Bella to look sickly and have this, you know, cropped, shorter hair. Because we've heard from Shanann's mother herself, Sandy, who's obviously older school, of a different kind of mentality. She was the person who cut Bella's hair, and she said, as we can all see in all the photos, you know, Bella had very thin, not so thick hair, and they were trying to encourage it to thicken up a little bit, so they used to regularly trim it. And as we see in all of Bella's final photos, her hair was growing. It was still quite wispy in places, but it was growing. She was getting the long hair that she always wanted. I mean, why would anybody think anything sinister in that? I mean, her hair did grow. I mean, I'm looking at the final photos of her at the birthday party, and she's got curly, beautiful, you know, long hair. It was a little bit, her hairline was a little bit broken, so it did appear a bit thinner, but she had the hair that she wanted. I mean, there's no reason for them to have punished her for any reason. I mean, I see so many photos of the children, and if you look back at Shanann's childhood photos, they had the same kind of hairstyles, you know, the sort of space buns and those kind of things. It was obviously something that Sandy did, and then obviously Shanann replicated. So that's why we're sort of seeing these hairstyles. But there are some photos when you can hardly tell whether it's Shanann or Bella. So that was one of the most trivial ones. And then the whole idea that Bella was rewarded with hair slides for not sucking her thumb. People were outraged, not because she was getting them, but because she was getting so many, and that she was able to count to 38, all the beautiful hair slides that she had received. So yeah, people seem to be delving into such surreal, minute detail about two little girls. I mean, to be totally honest, the way that Shanann chose to parent is really nobody's business. I mean, it's one of the biggest causes of family rifts, is when a relative intervenes or tries to give advice. And, you know, and here we have these random strangers on the internet thinking that they should be able to judge Shanann for the way that she brought up her children. I mean, it really is totally outrageous. Let me catch up with you guys. Yeah, I'm going to that, Robin. I'm definitely going to be addressing that. That's absolutely outrageous. Yeah, so looking at these photos, I mean, I discovered some new ones today, actually, of Shanann when she was a little girl, and she looks just like Bella, the same haircut and everything, the same hairstyle in the buns, and they look so similar. Her and her brother together, they were looking about the same age as Bella and CC. So the other huge accusation, and people actually believe this, is over the paternity of Nico. Okay, so this was, I'm not sure if you guys remember when Kim Coffin was on the scene a few months ago. That was one of her big things. She actually demanded that the Rusaks produce papers to confirm the paternity of Nico. I mean, why would they? And why would they give in to those kind of threats? But the outrageous thing is, this person who they actually publicly named is a really good friend of Shanann. They've been friends for years. His wife was part of the Lavelle family. She was on the Fry trips. But anyway, there was this horrible, nasty rumors about this person by the name of Chris Miller. And I mean, he was just her friend. Are women not allowed to have men friends? You know, it's just absolutely bizarre. Ronnie Watts himself spoke to Kim about this and said that he had phoned the DA's office and had been told, yes, Nico was Chris's child. Okay, so why would law enforcement think anything sinister was being asked? You know, they're confirming that Nico was Chris's child. But Ronnie said, oh, they didn't say Chris Watts. So they're presuming that it was another Chris, and they actually believe this. And people were talking about it and showing pictures of this Mr. Chris Miller all over the comments in Facebook and YouTube and all over Kim's channel. How would law enforcement have Chris Miller's DNA? He was never interviewed. He was never involved in this case. How on earth would they have his DNA to establish if he was the parent or not? His DNA wasn't tested. Only Chris Watts' DNA was tested. And it's just such a ludicrous claim that people are still repeating. And if for some reason Chris Miller was the father, the DA's office would be under no obligation to discuss the case at all with Ronnie Watts. It would be none of his business. But they did confirm and they clarified that Nico was definitely Chris Watts. So that's one little myth that I'm hoping we can put to bed, because that one is pretty horrendous and horrible, and it is a massive slur on Shanann, who's no longer here to defend herself. Yeah, it's just so true, Monica. Anything at all to make Shanann look bad. Absolutely. I mean, it's confidential, as you're saying, Miller, absolutely confidential information, as if they would just be talking about such things. But yeah, and then to broadcast that and for Ronnie to say that about his daughter-in-law, I think it says quite a lot about the Watts family. If you okay, one of the things that I find most pitiful is the Chris Watts, I'm the poor victim in all of this. You know, how nothing is ever his fault. Everything is blamed on Shanann. So if we look at the claim that Shanann was totally responsible for all the finances, okay, it was all her fault. They were going to be bankrupt again because of Shanann's reckless spending, okay. So this is actually quite laughable, because going by the discoveries, I'm actually talking facts now, we know that Chris Watts was spending money on his mistress, okay. They had lunch dates, they went to the movies, so you know he was spending money on the affair. So he had a much better idea of the financial situation than he ever lets on. In the discovery, he was asked about the state of the finances, because obviously it was this huge thing that they were going to be facing these problems. He said, he confirmed that he and Shanann had filed for bankruptcy 2 years prior. He knew when the kids returned to school that they would be living paycheck to paycheck. So he was quite aware of the state of what was going on. Shanann recently took out a $10,000 loan from his 401k, which I think was like a retirement fund, to catch up with their mortgage payments. I love how they say Shanann. Obviously, this was his money. He would have had to have signed off on that. But why does it get written in the discovery that Shanann took the money? Chris believed the loan was taken out approximately 5 months ago. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage payments. Okay, so he knew that. They had received a letter from Chase Bank pertaining to their delinquent home loan. He and Shanann were stressed out about their financial situation. He currently owes his mortgage payment for August 2018, which was actually due tomorrow. August 16th. He currently has $2,000 in his Chase checking account and approximately $1,500 in their USAA checking account. Almost all of their credit cards are maxed out. Again, Shanann, just Shanann had only been paying the minimum payment on their credit cards. So this idea comes from the Watts propaganda machine that Chris had no control over his money. He didn't know anything. It's just absolute baloney, because here we have it in the discovery that he was asked about this and he knew these facts. So yeah, I think we can take some of the heat off Shanann for everything there. Another surreal accusation is, and I've seen numerous posts about this, Shanann had no real friends. They would just have her down line, you know, afraid to give her the truth, afraid to speak openly with her. I mean, this is just such a massive slur, because I would love some friends like Shanann had. I mean, they were a tight circle. They had fun together. They went on business trips. They knew every single thing about her, everything. And some of them had been friends for a number of years. I mean, one of her friends, Lauren Arnold, they were friends from high school, and Lauren used to see Shanann regularly, at least once a month, for going over for play dates with their kids or meals or things like this. And she spoke to Shanann frequently on the phone, over Facebook or Messenger or whatever. So some really amazing things came out of these interviews with the friends when law enforcement were doing their investigation. So another huge thing that the haters love to say is, oh, Shanann would only be friends with you if you were thriving, you know, otherwise she would just ditch you. So this friend actually confirmed she thrived for a very short while. It was a bit too expensive for her and she didn't continue, but they were still close friends. She knew all about the bankruptcy and she knew that they were having financial difficulties. So Shanann wasn't trying to hide this, you know, this lie that she was trying to put on this front the whole time. She told her friends they were having problems. This friend knew about it. This friend would go over to the house regularly, and she noticed quite a change in Chris the last 6 months. He was a little bit more standoffish. One time, he went straight upstairs and didn't even acknowledge her, which she thought was slightly off, because, you know, he'd always been so friendly. And so she noticed that he was trying to sort of create this distance and he wasn't his normal self. That was about 6 months before all this happened. She knew all about the issues with Cindy Watts and Shanann. And she said it all went back to way before the wedding. And Shanann really disliked even having to talk to Cindy on the phone. I mean, my honest belief is Shanann moved to Colorado to get away from all this drama and stress with the family, because then at least she could avoid having to have this constant interference in her life and in her marriage. Let me just catch up with you guys. Yeah, I mean, Chris spent just as much and was high maintenance. I mean, he had all his gym equipment. I mean, he would buy stuff like for the garden, a lawnmower, you know, those kind of things. Yeah, so basically, just one example of a friend who knew everything, and they'd been friends from school. This other, her Thrive friends, okay, so Nicole Atkinson, who we all know, she was the one who called the law enforcement and really saved the day. She was considered one of Shanann's best friends. Shanann thought a lot of her. I mean, she put up birthday messages. She was very supportive. In one interview that Nicole gave, she actually said what an amazing friend Shanann was to her, because she'd had some personal private issues with her daughter who'd been taken out of the family home. And she said Shanann was really there for her. And, you know, she said that they had a really great relationship. Her other great friend was Christina Meacham. She flew from, I believe she lives in Hawaii, for 2 months to look after Shanann after she had her neck surgery. So, I mean, what if they aren't great friends? What do you call them? I mean, to me, they sound like awesome people who many of us would be pleased to have in our circle. We see all the fun that she had with all her close group when they went on their 5 trips. Her other good friend Cassie, I mean, she had really full-on conversations with them. Cassie was so supportive, and she even offered to move in to help pay the rent or get a new place with Shanann if it did come to a separation. So yeah, she definitely had good friends. That myth, I really wish that these haters would stop with all of that. Just one little example here. This was so sadly close to the murder, June 2018, from Shanann. Happy birthday, Nicole. Can't wait to celebrate with you in San Diego in 2 weeks. We are going to have an amazing time. Love you, girl. So that's the kind of normal friendship kind of messages that you would send to your close circle. So how anybody can doubt that, I really cannot even start to comprehend. And there's just so many photos of her with her group, and we know that on the final trip back, when she was waiting at the airport with her delayed flight, I mean, she had some extra time with her close circle, and they discussed everything, even sort of discussing if Chris probably was having an affair. That was post lazy dog dinner, so with the mistress. So yeah, they definitely knew everything. She wasn't trying to shield. She told them how vulnerable she felt. She was on her knees, I mean, he'd rejected her in every way. She told them. I mean, it must have been quite hard, this glamorous, very confident woman who had to tell her close friends that she'd been rejected, and her husband didn't even hardly want to touch her. So yeah, I don't think she was trying to hide the truth. Of course, you're not going to blast it all over social media, but she did tell her friends. Another really close friend who she was with on that final Arizona trip was Cindy as well. So yeah, she did have some really good people in her circle. So yeah, we see a jokey post from Shanann, 7th of September 2017. This is when she was wearing the neck brace, and she jokes here, and she's driving my Lexus, and then we have Christina driving the car. So yeah, she definitely trusted her, and what a great friend to come to help. Okay, so let me just see what we're going to talk about next. Let's just catch up with you guys. Yeah, rejection is the worst thing, because especially because he was playing his games. That's the big issue. He didn't ever just honestly tell her. He was sending her "I love you" messages as he boarded the plane, to fly to North Carolina. So no wonder she didn't know where she stood with him. Okay, one of the most surreal episodes, really, in this very tragic 2.5 years was this supposed book that Cindy Watts contributed to. I mean, it got leaked, and then there was so much backlash and controversy that it never published. I don't think it was ever actually finished. But you can see in these early chapters the issue here. They never really gelled with Shanann. There was the controversy over the engagement ring, and yes, I'm just going to correct this because I got it wrong the other day. It was $12,000, and it was definitely several months' salary for Chris. And his mother was outraged, and then Chris ran home and told Shanann. It caused a massive rift between them all. And basically, in this book, it really gives you a bit of an insight into how it all went wrong so early. This is just one small little paragraph. Okay, this is what sort of really gets up my back. Okay, so this is Cindy apparently talking to this author. So she also told us she had recently been in a single car accident and had hurt her neck. She might have said she'd gone through the windshield too, but I can't be sure. She seemed to be healthy and happy all the time we saw her. So I just suppose she was a strong person. So even though she's giving this kind of backhanded compliment, she's a strong person, she's still sort of saying, oh, she may have gone through the windscreen, but she wasn't sure. So there's always some little dig when she was talking about Shanann. She was then talking about how she was supporting herself and doing well, especially for her age. Cindy goes on to say that Chris was living in Charlotte, so we didn't see as much of him as we would have liked, and he's never exactly been the chatty type on the phone. So you can see here that this big, oh my gosh, Chris, the golden boy son, was just really not based on reality or fact. Just here, go down to the next bit. Then obviously all the families try to get together and all gel and get on. I'll admit too that I wasn't looking to get really close to Shanann, not because I disliked her, but because her conversations were so personal that they made me a little uncomfortable. This is the most surreal paragraph I've ever read in my life. All the innermost secrets about the families have been divulged by Cindy, but she doesn't want to get close to somebody who's open. And she admits it here. She never, ever wanted to get close to Shanann, her own future daughter-in-law. I mean, what chance did Shanann ever have, to be totally honest? Anyway, I had spoken about this book in a previous episode. So as we just go towards this last chapter, a daughter is a daughter all your life. A son is a son till he takes a wife. Yes, Cindy, if only you had understood that more. If only you could have just accepted your son's choices, accepted that he is an adult and he had a right to marry who he wanted without all your interfering and all your drama. So yeah, this is my honest belief why Shanann got as far away from them as possible. Okay, so we've been talking about this idea that is constantly discussed in the groups, in the comments, that somehow Shanann wasn't a good mother. It just makes me so enraged, because we're not just seeing 100, we're seeing thousands of photos with Shanann with her children. She spent the final 6 weeks giving them an amazing holiday when they were doing everything: beach, fun fairs, summer Santa, with the grandparents. I mean, the amazing little birthday party for Cece's third. All of this against this gaslighting and manipulation coming from her husband. And she did all of this, and we've seen the photos. We've seen the videos. We know that she was an amazing mother. So I just could never understand these people, other mothers, other grandmothers, who spread this hate about a loving mother, because we've got the proof. We can see it. I mean, you wouldn't need to stand up more than 5 minutes in court and say, here's your reasonable doubt. I'm showing you, here she is, a loving mother. I'm going to give you just a few examples. So we have this back in June 2017. The moment they fight over mummy, they both want to lay on me. She was just sort of, the laughing emojis. Been up since 4 a.m. with CC. Thank goodness for my thrive. I'm wide awake and feel alive. Okay, so obviously children have illnesses. Children wake up at 4 a.m. Obviously, she was marketing a brand. She was trying to sell a product. I mean, she would never, ever try to dispute that. That was what her business was. She was trying to demonstrate, okay, I'm a mother. I've got 2 kids who have a lot of energy, and Thrive's helping me. That's all she was trying to say. And everybody twists it into some horrible, nasty little narrative. But one thing to really stand out here is there were these awful accusations that the children were drugged every single night of their lives and went to bed at 6 and were locked in their bedrooms. I mean, there are so many posts that prove this is not based on reality. We see Chris Watts himself, okay, on the final night when he has said, I mean, we know that he lies and there's different versions, but when he has said that he knew when he put his daughters to bed for the final time that that was going to be the last time he ever tucked them into their beds. When he's speaking to law enforcement and he describes the events of that night, he said, Bella got up twice asking me when mummy would be home. And he reassured that mummy would be back in the morning. Okay, so if the children were locked in their bedrooms, why on earth wouldn't Chris just lock the door? Because he was trying to have an 111-minute conversation with his mistress, and all sorts of things were going on that evening. But why on earth, if it was so common and so true that they were locked in their bedrooms, why didn't he lock Bella in the room that night? She got up twice, not once, twice. And obviously he was trying to chat with the mistress. That conversation neither can remember. So yeah, so I've never ever believed that. This was the evening after the little birthday party when both the girls had been playing, and it was also that evening that just after 5 p.m. Watts seemed to set his plan in motion. He phoned one of his work colleagues to say that he would drive out there on the early Monday morning, to sort out the issue with the supposed leak. So yeah, I mean, he had lots going on in his mind that night. So I think the easiest thing would just have closed the door if his daughters were used to that. And surely if they had drugs every night, he could have just given them drugs. So yeah, that never makes any sense to me. He noted that both girls were eager to see their mother, who was due to return home later that night. Yeah, so that's one issue that is another that crops up is confrontational. That's Shanann seemed to enjoy confrontation. Okay, so there is no actual proof of this. I mean, Shanann, by her own admission, was a strong, a woman with Italian heritage who went for what she wanted, and of course she did seem to be the driving force in the relationship for many years. This seems to have suited Chris. So I thought, okay, let's just go back and look into this a little bit. So remember that Shanann was previously married to a guy called Leonard King. So I thought I'd look in the discovery because he was interviewed by law enforcement. I just wanted to hear what he had to say. He didn't really have much to say, but what he said was quite important, I feel. So let me just pull this up here for you. So he stated, when the marriage was not going so well, Shanann poured herself into work, worked a lot, and stopped coming home at night. He was unable to get details from her. Leonard, this is the husband, said that people liked Shanann. She was compelling. She was a compelling personality. Shanann was in high school when Leonard first met her. She got along well with people. Once she was done, she cut herself off from him. At home, they would be in different rooms, and she was always too busy for what Leonard had going on. She was not confrontational, and she more withdrew. Okay, so this is the ex-husband. He could say whatever he wanted. Shanann's not here to defend herself. So she wasn't confrontational. When Shanann posted about the huge bust-up with Cindy, she put in one of her comments, "Oh no, I bit my tongue because the kids are little, but that is the last time my children step in her house." So you see, even here, she tried to avoid confrontation. She actually phoned her dad to come and pick her up because she mentioned that she was being team tagged, which means, Cindy and her daughter were kind of ganging up a little bit on to Shanann. So yeah, there's no confrontation there either. She wanted to get away from it. So then we think, okay, surely Mr. Christopher Watts is going to have an opinion on this. Okay, he's already accused his wife of killing the children. So from the Dodge confession, he was asked about this. So Tammy Lee, we know the agent from the polygraph, she asked him, did you guys ever fight? Was there any domestic violence in your house? Chris, no, we never. Tammy, this is strange to us. The other agent, Graham, even from her to you, she gets mad when she's pregnant and grabs a knife or scratches you or smacks you around or something. Nothing? Question mark. No, she never nothing. Graham, the other agent. Okay. So Chris then states, that's what makes all this even more hard to understand from my standpoint. And I know from yours too. So then they go on, did she ever belittle you at all? Did you ever feel that way? Chris, I mean, there was always a point in a marriage where the dominant person takes control of everything. But my whole life, I just went with the flow. I never put myself in the center of attention. I never wanted to be. I just wanted to be in the back row. If she did belittle me, I couldn't think of that point in time. So you never really felt that way? No, I mean, I always knew I was the introvert and she was took control of most situations, like when people came over. Sorry, I just lost the page there. When people came over, I knew what my role was. Okay, so even Chris himself, is saying no, there was no huge domestic issue in their marriage. So then they went on to talk about the videos, and he did actually then say that he wasn't happy to always be in the videos, but that's what I'm really thinking. He's stating some truth here. We could see in some of the videos he didn't always look comfortable. In some, he seemed to be loving the attention, in my honest opinion. But here he could easily have said much more about Shanann. So I wonder why he didn't, because it seems that there was not a problem until he was a bachelor for 5 weeks and met the mistress, because he was happy in that role. He has that kind of personality. That was who he really was. He couldn't have led the household and orchestrated everything. That was Shanann's role, and she did it really, really well. What do you guys think about that up to this point? Yeah. Brad Miller, Shanann was very sociable and responsible. He lacked empathy and social skills. I mean, he really did. I mean, we've seen it. Back 5 or so minutes ago, I said how the friend had said he went straight upstairs. I mean, that's pretty rude, isn't it? There's no social grace there. You wouldn't treat a guest in your home like that. You'd acknowledge them, make a little bit of small talk. You wouldn't just walk in and go straight upstairs and just blank them. I mean, that is absolutely so rude. Okay. So obviously, going back to the first marriage, I mean, Shanann described it in a totally different way. She ended up just stating it simply robbed her of her confidence and literally everything. I mean, she was totally has awful sort of memories of that first marriage, and she had a totally different perception of what was going on. One of the, I suppose, the biggest falsehoods is, and again, you see whole huge posts on this with comment after comment. So Shanann was never with the girls, okay? So we know for a fact that she was, because as I've just said, she spent the final 5-week holiday in North Carolina with them every single day, all the school holidays. Sadly, the children did have little colds and stomach upsets, as young children do, and Shanann would be at home nursing the children. We see her on the couch with them. One thing was continually stated is that both children were always at school, okay? Always at school. So I'm looking back at a post, March 31st, 2017. This is Shanann. My daughter is 2 days a week in the preschool class and has only been 6 times so far. And what she has learnt so far is incredible. Truly amazing school and wonderful teachers. This was Primrose, and there's just a stock photo of the school. But she's confirming here that CC was only attending 2 days a week at the preschool. So this idea that they were full-time, obviously because they were both getting older, I do think that in the new term, starting August 2018, they would be attending for more hours, but they definitely weren't full-time, as everybody keeps accusing, that they were locked in these from 7 a.m. to whatever, 8 hours a day or whatever. This is just one post, okay? So she's never with the children. Let me just read this one post to you. So this is back in 2018, June. We had such an eventful weekend, 3 birthday parties, play dates, 3 Thrive locals, concerts and more. First trimester is no joke. Today, I'm packing the girls' suitcases for our 6-week trip to NC. This should be fun. Then I need to pack mine. This will be harder since most won't fit, because obviously she was pregnant. Then off to do a deep cleaning on the house before the girls and I leave, plus grocery shopping for a bachelor for 5 weeks on his own and meal prep for him. A lot to do this week. Thankful for Thrive. Of course, she was going to mention Thrive, but you could see what she was doing. She wasn't sitting at home painting her nails. This was a busy mother. And all their friends said they were always at play dates. They were always going to each other's houses. They were always doing stuff. To think that she was this inactive, non-present mother is just such a blatant lie. And I really, really wish these people would stop, because that one is just so unfair, because she was really trying to be a really great mum. Some of the worst videos that I've seen from the so-called haters are when they freeze frame Shanann's videos and dissect frame by frame. I mean, what person amongst any of us could face that kind of scrutiny and not be judged? I mean, you're going to do something wrong, aren't you? I mean, I'm just live tonight and I've already knocked my glass of water over. I'm worried about the internet. Shanann was going live with 2 children, reading a recipe, trying to speak to her audience, which nearly every single time included her mum and dad, especially her dad. He was always watching. Friends. She was trying to do all of this, keep control of the whole situation, wipe the children's noses. If one of them was slipping, she would stop and attend to the children. All the time, also trying to sell Thrive. It's like me here trying to sell a product on the back of this. I'm trying to concentrate on my presentation, not worry about selling. But she did all of this, okay? And she was trying to give a cookery lesson to her kids and involve them as well. And they judge her. I mean, how can this be possible that a mother that's freezing her video and saying, oh, look at her push Bella's hand away. Why doesn't she let the children just get engaged and involved? Because she's on camera trying to sell her brand and she didn't want everything to go wrong. CC at one stage tipped the sugar all over the countertop. I mean, she was trying to stop that happening, but no, they want to judge her and freeze frame her videos. So this was when they were baking the Christmas chocolate chip cookies. It was in 2017. So yeah, it's just really pitiful that these people can do this. Surely they're mothers themselves. They know how hard it is to look after 2 young children. Yeah, so that was she was getting some really, really lovely feedback from her friends, and her dad was watching, and her mum. So that was really cool. I think Chris was actually cameraman that day, and he did jump in when ingredients were being spilled everywhere. But Shanann was trying to keep it together. I mean, it's not easy going live and trying to keep the whole thing straight. Okay, so then we continue this idea that Shanann was not involved in their upbringing. Okay, so she's posted numerous times dropping the children at school. There's this cute little picture of them, the girls holding hands, and she was just sort of telling her friends and family, they hold each other's hands walking to class every day. We drop Celeste off to class first. Celeste has to push us out of the class, hug and kiss, and gives us a high five. She does this every drop off. Hashtag they are my heart. Okay, so we actively see post after post after post of Shanann dropping the children, sometimes very early in the morning. I mean, she was up so early and out with the children. I mean, we've seen post after post the children beautifully dressed in, matching little outfits or whatever. She put a lot of time and effort into her children. And I don't know, but I mean, I'm seeing different times of the day. I'm seeing darkness in some of the shots, and other days it's full light. So, it's different parts of the day when she was with them. So this idea that she was never with her children, we see her posting that they're just sitting down to watch a movie. Okay, well, that's quality time like a normal mother with her children. I mean, don't people see these posts? It's so easy to cherry pick and just pick out 1 or 2, but I've looked at every single picture and every single photo on YouTube and every single photo on Facebook. I haven't just judged it on what's available on Shanann's current Facebook. And all the little fun, crazy times when the girls were dressing up in Shanann's clothes, pulling on woolen hats with their summer outfits, dressing up and having fun, just like children did. I mean, she was encouraging them. She was always encouraging them to have fun, to be the best version of themselves. You see them when they're all themed in their matching outfits, just like normal families having fun. She was dealing with Bella, and Cece ran outside in her little summer one piece, but she'd pulled on her winter hat and she was out on the slide when Shanann came looking for her. She was trying to build these girls to be totally independent, but I mean, she definitely had so much input. So when people say she was an absent mother who didn't have any time for them, I just really cannot fathom. There's a really cute photo when all 3 of them, Shanann and the 2 girls, are putting on lipstick in the mirror because the girls wanted to be like their mother. I mean, she was always with them. I mean, this was an evening shot by the light coming in. So yeah, I'm just looking through all the fun shots from their holidays. They were always matching sunglasses and it looking like they were having really, really fun times, like little girls everywhere around the world do, in a loving family. I just don't understand where this ever comes from. And we see the interaction in the comments. I mean, she had very supportive friends. I mean, there's one funny photo when Cece is climbing down the stairs. It looks quite sort of precarious, and all the friends jumped in, and apparently one of the friends' children had taught Cece how to do that. But there was loads of encouragement. It was just normal family interaction with your friends, because Shanann's Facebook wasn't for us. It was for her friends, her clients, and her family. She never knew that it was going to make Netflix and be analyzed frame by frame. There's a really cute one when all 3 of them are dressed up in matching fur slippers. I mean, it's that kind of attention to detail. She put a lot of thought into what they were going to be doing every day. Okay, so this is just another little thing that Shanann did because, she was sitting around with so much time on her hands. She was always so busy. So when Chris went through his transformation, she made a post because he had dropped from a 38 waist to a 32 and he needed new summer clothes. So she went out and bought him several items and happy birthday, babe. And she left him a pile of clothes. So she was exceptionally proactive. She certainly wasn't sitting around, as these accusers like to say. What do you guys make of that? I mean, I can imagine a lot of you guys are mothers, and how would you stand up to that level of scrutiny? I mean, I just cannot even comprehend it. I just really cannot even comprehend it. Yeah, Erin, it's so true. There's so many amazing photos of Shanann and the girls. Yeah, I mean, I would see that's the most important thing for me. I mean, I'm only here to discuss the victims. I'm not interested in that man. I'll call him the man. I'm just not interested in anything him or his family have got to say. I don't want to hear any defense of him. I mean, I really feel he had his chance, and yeah, these beautiful victims, and they're never coming back. So that's what we need to remember. Okay, let's just have a look through. Okay, one of the well, I don't know where to start with this one, really. I'm just going to say to you one word: CPS. Okay, this CPS accusation is just so outrageous, and it's been debunked. Been whole YouTube's put out about this. I mean, it's totally been debunked. I would just like to add one little point tonight in regarding debunking this. Why would Chris Watts, in his first alibi, use the notion that he'd left the children with their mother after a emotional conversation if she was a danger to his children? Okay, why would he admit that he left her to drive off to work, all home alone, just her and the two girls, and the only thing coming up was school, but she would be left for a number of hours between him leaving the house and then Shanann taking the children and then on to her doctor's appointment? So why would he even use that alibi? Surely he would have used, oh my goodness, I'm terrified because my wife has a CPS open file on her. She's a danger to my children. Surely the police would immediately have been alerted that there was this open file. When they did a check, surely it would have come up immediately. I mean, it was never mentioned by anybody. Tammy Lee never mentioned it, and none of the interrogations is it ever mentioned. In the very early stages of the interviews, Chris was adamant that Shanann would never ever harm the children, before he was given that idea from Tammy Lee herself. But I mean, I just cannot comprehend why anybody would believe that he would stand on a porch and give news interviews the next day and state that his wife had gone off on a play date and not be concerned. Cindy Watts herself said she had absolutely zero concern to start with because she just thought Shanann was throwing one of her strops and was trying to punish Chris. Obviously, poor Chris again, but Cindy despises Shanann. If it had been a CPS charge, don't you think Cindy would have been shouting it from the rooftops? Sorry, excuse me, can't speak there. So I just can never ever understand how that charge has been continually repeated. That myth is still repeated daily. I read it daily on different posts and different blogs and different channels. So if we actually look into this a little bit deeper, okay, obviously the children's records were all sealed when Chris took the plea deal. So there's only a limit to the information that you can actually find. But if you look at the fertility data for the state of Colorado for 2018, you find some information that could correlate with this case, which I believe correlates with this case. And there was communication sent to Chris Watts himself when he was at Weld County Jail, and it was from the Weld County Department of Human Resources. They sent him a letter. It's addressed to him. We see the letter. It's in the discovery. There's no Photoshop. This was the original letter, and so it went to Chris Watts on the 1st of October 2018, and it just informs him that the allegations have been confirmed, and you, as in Chris Watts, have been identified as the person responsible for the incident of child abuse or neglect detailed below. And then it went on to say that it was a fatality in both the named children, Bella and Celeste Watts. So we have it here that this was addressed to Chris Watts. It wasn't referencing his wife, it was referencing him, you, it clearly states. Again, if we look in the public notifications, very sadly, listed with a reference number, the same reference number, but A and B, we see very sadly 2 females fatal, 4 and 3-year-old in home, because obviously at that time it was believed that the children were killed at home. This was before they got the second confession, basically. So it's listed. And although obviously for confidentiality, it doesn't name anybody in this report, which is a public notification, it does show these two females, 4 and 3, as fatal. And it asked, there's a column, it said, no, listed under any previous activity. So this is confirming there was no previous activity before a file was opened because the children were murdered. Nothing to do with Shanann. Absolutely, categorically, it states no. Under some of the cases, it does state yes, but in this case, with these 2 children, which was exactly the date that these children were recovered, which was the 16th of August, the day they were recovered, it states no prior file. So if anybody tells you or you see this, please just send them to this video, and they can they can contact me, and I'll send them every single page of this so they can see for themselves. So let's hope that one's been debunked. Okay, so I'm going to end this on probably the most awful one for me, and some of you guys have already mentioned this. Brad Miller, this CPS nonsense all came from Miss Mensa, and there was another blog as well written by this horrific woman who's made all these awful accusations, and I'm very sad to say that a lot of this was fed from the Watts clan themselves, because they were giving interviews and talking to all these creators and talking to Critical K when she was posting that Shanann Watts was the most unlikable victim possible, so it's that kind of narrative. I mean, the Watts were collaborating with these type of people. So yeah, unfortunately, it all goes back to them. So when you look at this case, what, apart from the CPS, there is this horrendous idea that Shanann was inventing illnesses for herself and her children. It's really quite sickening, because what it would mean is that medical professionals would need to be complicit in going along with this. Okay, I mean, these children had procedures. They would have needed to have seen a specialist before they received these procedures. And what would be the aim of this? I mean, Shanann spoke of Thrive helping her condition. She was getting better. She looked so well and healthy before, the final 6-week gaslighting and manipulation from her husband. She looked amazing. We've seen all the photographs at the Thrive Awards and different things. She looked really, really super well. The children were getting on top of their issues. They had been diagnosed, probably it was asthma that had been causing these problems. They were aware of CC's allergies, and the children were starting to look super healthy. They were having less illnesses. They're getting through that stage when they catch every single thing. So yeah, this whole idea that it was all fabricated, Munchausen by proxy is what a lot of people love to put out there, but that would just mean so many professionals were complicit in what was going on. So I looked up, just out of interest, and it's classed as fabricated or induced illness, and it's a rare form of child abuse. And I was just looking through, and some of the red flags that you would look out for, they just don't stack up with Shanann. I was just looking through the list now. So one of the huge red flags, the child's daily activities are being limited far beyond what would usually be expected. For example, they never go to school. So Shanann's children were always at school. I mean, Bella was communicating quite freely and would have been able to have spoken about anything to her teachers. Another red flag that they state, the parent or carer does not seem too worried about the child's health, despite being attentive. I mean, we know with Nutgate, this is an absolute fallacy. She was absolutely frantic with worry and was always thinking about her child's well-being, Just looking through these lists now. One parent, commonly the father, has little or no involvement in the care of the child. No, he was extremely involved on a daily basis. The parent or carer encourages medical staff to perform often painful tests and procedures on the child. I mean, this is when you're talking about highly trained medical staff being complicit. I mean, and to what end? She just wanted her children to be well, because it was a massive financial strain on this family. All of these medical bills. I mean, they were still paying off for her neck surgery. I mean, what would be the point in fabricating? I mean, she could get much, if you look at her interaction, she got much more interaction when the children were being amazing or being, so full of energy. She didn't need to get any sympathy vote. I mean, these children look so happy in the majority of the photos. When Shanann posted that they were sick, they looked sick. They actually look unwell. And when they were happy, they look well and they look totally fine. So they didn't constantly look downtrodden and sick for the whole duration of their lives. There are so many amazingly happy photos of those children having a really joyful time. So this nonsense that she was making up illnesses, I mean, they were, all of them, including the mother, they were all improving. Shanann actually stated that Thrive had cured her. She didn't need her medication anymore. She didn't have a new condition that she was complaining about. She was saying she'd never felt better. That is not atypical for somebody who's looking for sympathy and making up medical conditions. It's just not. If you look at any list, they don't raise the red flags. In famous cases, the mothers have been terrified of leaving their children alone for even half an hour because they may dare to tell somebody. Shanann left her children with Cindy Watts, her enemy, and went off on holiday and left her children. So it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And if there was anything in this family, Chris Watts was also a parent as well. You know, it's not just Shanann, he was the father. He was often responsible for childcare and the baths and everything. You know, this was a two-way. Shanann wasn't a single mother. So I'm really hoping that we can all really push that one off the top of a building, because I'm really over her being accused when she was wanting her children to be healthy, and they were. They had a blast in North Carolina. We saw all the photos. I mean, they were having an absolutely amazing time. I mean, she wanted them to have great experiences, hence why she encouraged them to visit, you know, Summer Santa after what happened in the past. I mean, the kids were having a ball. They were chatting to Santa. They seemed to be loving it. So, yeah, that's kind of it, guys. Just hopeful that we can put some of these falsehoods to bed. Just right at the end here, I just had a couple of screen grabs. So Shanann was talking about the children having a nap, and somebody said, so Shanann posted, "My kids are out cold. I think I should wake them. It's almost 3 p.m. So it'd been like a 2-hour or so nap. And somebody had commented, "You finally wore them out. Lol, they will keep you up tonight." So Shanann said, "Nope, they normally sleep 2 or so hours during the day, and they go to bed 6:30 to 7. So it wasn't 6, it was 6:30 to 7. So, you know, this stretched reality that people say the kids were asleep at 6 is not true. You know, she stated here 6:30 to 7, you know, and we saw the children reading, and no kid is just going to drop off to sleep. And then what was really interesting in the comments, Granddad Frank said they are tired from swimming. Okay, they'd been swimming like normal children. They were exhausted. They're having a little nap after swimming. So if you look a bit deeper than these haters, you get a much fuller picture. I'm really tired of being told, "Oh, you're too emotional. You know, you need to look deeper, go deeper." I have. This is my conclusion. It's just my opinion, but this is my conclusion looking through everything. I haven't cherry picked. I've looked at all of the accusatory posts, and I really seriously have no reason to defend Shanann. I don't know her. I didn't know her. It's just based on my observations. I don't see this abuse or this person. I just see a mother who had her faults, like all of us, just trying her best. Anyway, guys, I'm really sorry that one went a bit longer. I normally try to keep them just over the hour at most. That went a bit long. Sorry about that. But I'm so grateful to you guys for spending your time helping to support this new channel. Everything's just based on opinion, but I am always trying to look at the actual discovery, look at everything with an open mind. And if I thought there was anything untoward going on, I would be the first to say. Please, if you could, I just ask you to subscribe to the channel so you get notified of our new episodes. We're going to try for weekly. And as I said, as we can get the numbers up, I'm really hoping to introduce guests, because I don't really like speaking in a vacuum. You know, I like to have other opinions and hear other thoughts. And I would also love to invite any of you up. We could have an open panel. You could be a guest. Just keep it simple. We can talk about anything. If you have any ideas or thoughts, what you would like me to discuss next, I will absolutely be open to that. Well, just such huge thanks. I hope you all have a lovely day, evening, whatever your time zone. It's close to 11:30 p.m. here. And yeah, please spread the word. If we can get a few more subs, I'd be very happy. And thank you all so much. I am extremely grateful to each and every one of you. Have a lovely evening. Take good care. Thank you.